Decide whether or not you're done gathering.
I am mad that you told me to come.
Decide right now.
Courtney, that's a word. I asked you so many times that I don't know, and I apologize. But you hit me.
Shut the up.
So I just watched Courtney Clenney's sentencing hearing today, and I almost couldn't believe it. I was like, wait a minute, what? So I was like, did I just believe my ears when a judge was reading off her sentencing? Courtney Clenney, this $1.8 million OnlyFans earning model, she got only 6 years for manslaughter, the manslaughter of her boyfriend. And I was just kind of waiting for the judge to read off more charges, or I was like, wait a minute, what happened to this second-degree murder charge? But apparently it was replaced with a first-degree felony count of manslaughter with a deadly weapon. Talk about a sweet plea deal. This is one of the perhaps most lenient murder charges dropped down to manslaughter that I've ever seen. And if you think Courtney has been like a model inmate, you'd be wrong. But she has been there for 4 years, and so they agreed to give her time served. So she could be out theoretically in 2 years, even less time, maybe for good behavior. Has she had better behavior? I don't know.
Of the murder charge, and she could be a free woman in a year and a half.
Well, if you haven't heard of the case, it's a case where Courtney Clenney met this man, Christian Aboncelli. I kept looking at how to pronounce his name. I hope to God I'm pronouncing it correctly. So they met each other in November 2020. It took place while Courtney was on a content shoot in Tulum, Mexico. I don't really know what Christian was doing. I was trying to look that up and figure out his occupation. I see he worked in crypto and he acted as Courtney's manager. You know, they made an impressive couple. Obviously, they liked posting together on Instagram and everything. Now, Courtney, after meeting Christian in 2020, she went on to have, I guess, her most successful, in terms of financial means, she had her most successful year yet. She made $1.8 million on OnlyFans in 2021. Now, her lawyer is fighting against the Son of Sam laws, you know, the law where it says convicted perps can't make money off their victims. If she wins this fight too, will she get out, let's say, and will she get out and be able to jump back on OnlyFans and talk about how she murdered Christian? Or should I say manslaughtered him? Oh, it's crazy. Christian and Courtney moved to South Florida from Texas in January 2022, and they started living in this luxury condo building in Edgewater. So they were down there in Miami, but the money, it goes to show you, money doesn't make everyone happy. Can you imagine? I remember finding out when I learned Courtney earned, first she earned $900,000, I believe, that first year she met Christian. The very next year, 1.8 million. I mean, my goodness, what is that? Doubling your income. I don't know what her OnlyFans content was, but my goodness, I was amazed by the earnings of some of these girls. But obviously it didn't make them happy. They weren't this happy, stable couple. And to say their relationship was volatile is more than an understatement. They separated a bunch of times. And in the last week of March 2022, Courtney had kicked Christian out of their apartment. But then they rekindled their romance. You know, he came back, he moved back in, unfortunately on April 1st, 2022. How scary. It's a very sad and volatile relationship. There's so many videos of them, you know, her being aggressive with him. I don't know how much of it may have been reactive abuse. And by reactive abuse, I mean, I don't know if Christian ever fought back against Courtney's abuse of him. You know, that's why it's so vital, if you're with a volatile person, to try and distance yourself as much as possible.
Why don't I have these shoes on yet? Do I have to do this? Think of freezing your balls off. Do you want a White Claw? Okay. You got this, Courtney. Go. Oh my God. Put your shoulders in. Put your shoulders in. It'll make it better. You did it. What do you mean? Or did you?
We're past 10 seconds.
You got it. Come on.
It's all mental, right?
Hell yeah.
Chanel bag you.
Control your breath. Control your breath.
Here, let me see if I have this towel.
10 seconds.
Do I have a towel? Yeah, I heard that in the background.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You did it.
To try and distance yourself as much as possible from them, because I know it's easier said than done, believe me, but if someone is getting aggressive with you and you're fighting back, it's sometimes hard to tell the reactive abuse, the reaction to the abuse, and separate that from the abuser. I think that's part of why this case got so willy-nilly. One of the many reasons. There's a lot of drama in this case. So unfortunately, Christian moved back in with Courtney April 1st, 2022. After all these fights, after all this name calling, I mean, this one fight, Courtney's going off on Christian for saying hi to some girl as he was riding his bike. I mean, it shows you how volatile and weird their arguments were.
So shut up and let me slap you, dumb.
You're not gonna slap me on.
Give me my phone.
You have your phone.
You literally talked to her without telling me.
Courtney, I was on a bike ride and she passed me and I said hi. You and Courtney are having a live chat. My bad, I forgot to tell you that. That doesn't make you to act and call me a You're a Yes, thank you. Coming from Courtney, thank you.
I want you to get away from me.
But as soon as he moved back in, April Fool's Day as it were, there were more arguments right away. The police showed up at their apartment that same day, April 1st. Now, a couple of days later, on April 3rd, 2022, they seemed to be getting along. You know, they had filmed themselves with their dogs. They used to like to wear all the designer, outfits, and you know how some couples are on social media, like, look at us, look how beautiful, look at our designer fit. That's the life, I guess, they wanted to portray. But Christian left the apartment early that afternoon on April 3rd, 2022, and Courtney called him around 4:01 p.m. right before she went live on Instagram. Now, Christian came back about 4:33 p.m., and then by 4:57 p.m., Courtney was calling 911 to report, Christian stabbed to death, he needed help, but that was not her first phone call. It is a 911 phone call, however, that Christian can be heard repeatedly saying he was dying. He was losing the feeling in his arm. And Courtney did say, "I'm so sorry, baby." Was she really sorry? Maybe sorry that she was about to go to jail. So that same day, April 3rd, 2022, the Miami police, fire rescue, and everyone, they showed up at the condo. They're tending to what happened here, this stab wound. They found Christian with a singular stab wound to his chest. And Courtney did claim responsibility. The knife penetrated, unfortunately, 8 centimeters into Christian's chest, and it punctured his subclavian artery. So obviously it was a fatal wound. He was transported to Jackson Memorial Hospital, and he died from his injuries. Courtney was 26 at the time, and Christian was only 27 years old. But right away, Courtney is making it seem like, okay, Christian is the primary aggressor. This is self-defense. He was coming after me. Courtney even claimed that, he was coming after me and I just grabbed the knife and he was going to harm me. And she claimed she kind of like threw the knife at him. But even forensically, they determined that was an impossibility because of the downward angle of the knife wound. Thankfully, people weren't buying it. All the cops weren't buying it. They saw Courtney all bloodied and everything. But Courtney, she had a great lawyer, this Frank Pareto. He told NBC6 immediately Courtney acted in self-defense. He basically said Christian attacked her and choked her that evening. Courtney had no choice but to meet force with force. Now, not everyone was believing it. People started finding, evidence, Courtney hitting on Christian in an elevator, just their volatile arguments, audio. Sometimes she would record him without him knowing. I believe vice versa. There's so much about this case.
Decide whether or not you're done,
I
Kathleen.
am mad that you told me to come.
Decide right now.
Courtney, that's a threat. I asked you so many times that I don't know, and I apologize. But you hit me.
Shut the up.
And hopefully now we can get more evidence that she's been sentenced, her guilty plea is in. After the crime, Courtney went to Hawaii. She was probably chased out of Florida. There's this one video, she's in a hotel lobby, and I think she's with her dad or someone. people are videotaping her like, look, you know, giving her a hard time and like, yeah, you should leave, basically. And she kind of stomps off. Of course, this is before she was arrested. So Courtney kind of flees to Hawaii for rehabilitation for substance abuse and post-traumatic stress disorder. She really did have good lawyers putting out these kind of statements like, no, she's not in Hawaii chilling, you know, on a beach somewhere. I don't know what she did, but he was saying, look, she's going for rehab. She has a substance abuse and PTSD. So Courtney immediately is pitted as the victim in this case. And that didn't stop people from finding her, you know, chasing her out. However, there was controversy in this case, I will say. I think Christian lost a lot of sympathy. Of course, Courtney did too, but sometimes, unfortunately, victims in crime cases, they lose sympathy because of things on their social media that come out. Okay, like Courtney, of course, she lost sympathy because the recordings that came out featured her calling Christian different slurs and back and forth. I feel like people didn't know which way to go. Of course, people started digging into Christian's old Twitter account, and there were some horrific tweets. I'm trying to remember now. This case is 4 years old. He did say some things about black girls. I won't quote it because I don't remember verbatim, but they were disparaging remarks about black girls. On the other hand, his family was saying, look, don't hold his feet to the fire for something he wrote when he was like a little kid. He was what, 14 years old or something like that when he wrote those tweets. Either way, nevertheless, I do remember the temperature of Christian as a victim. It kind of, I could witness it just going like this. Now, I already know what it is being in true crime. I've seen the type of victims that get the most attention. And honestly, to tell you the truth, oftentimes if it's a male victim, they don't necessarily get a lot of attention. Whether they're a minority or not, person of color, they don't necessarily get the same attention unless it's a strange viral case, for example, like Nolan Wells. We don't know if he's a victim of anything, you know, we don't know if there's foul play in that case. Those cases are kind of odd because I've noticed when I post about a male, whether he's an adult or a child, it tends not to get the same attention as when I post about females, especially females that aren't a person of color. So I remember with Christian's case, his support was kind of like, I could just feel it waning after people found those old tweets of his. But yet and still, Christian is a victim. And his family said today in court, as a family, we cannot get past the fact that Christian was stabbed while you, Courtney, they're pointing it to her and she's kind of crying. You remained on the phone with your mom. Then you called downstairs to security, and your third and final call, which should have been your first call, was the 911 call. So wow, she made 3 calls and finally the third one was to 911. In fact, I thought she called her mom back. So I want to see that there's a timeline too. So at 4:01 p.m., Courtney called Christian, then she went live on Instagram. 4:33 p.m. she called him again, shortly after posting her video. 4:33 p.m. Christian walks into their apartment. 4:43 p.m. Courtney's calling her mother. That call lasted until 4:49 p.m., just over 6 minutes. 4:49 p.m. Courtney made a second call to her mother, so she did call her mother twice. Yes, and they spoke until 4:56 p.m., so that's 7 minutes, a little over 7 minutes. Then finally at 4:57 p.m., Courtney called 911. And then by 5:04 p.m., police officers exited the elevator at the unit. So when Courtney called her mother at 4:43 p.m., I wonder when in there exactly was Christian stabbed? And how long did she wait to literally get him help? So the family is saying, look, yes, your third call. So they're saying you called security. So that's interesting. I wonder if she called her mom and then called her mom back and then security and then 911. 911 might have been her fourth call. In the meantime, Christian's family said to Courtney, you offered no life-saving measures to try and save Christian's life. To us, that is inhumane. So that stuck with me. if she truly was afraid of him, let's say, if he allegedly choked her, she had stabbed him, they are saying, okay, you didn't go over there and try and, bind his wounds or stop the bleeding or give him CPR or whatever. I guess she did nothing except call 911 eventually. Now, attorneys representing the family of the victim, Christian, said the family had participated in discussions and they agreed to this resolution to avoid an unpredictable trial. They wanted a degree of legal closure. I'm very glad the family was in on this decision to let her strike such a sweet plea deal, because I was thinking, oh my goodness, will they have any influence, any input on a plea deal, or are their desires not accounted for at all? But I'm glad they had their say in this, and they really read some beautiful tribute statements. They talked about Christian's life having meaning. And that's what I always think of when someone gets such short time for literally taking someone's life. Courtney's light sentence reminded me of this Lauren Pazina. I don't know, I just call her the push girl. Do you guys remember this? I did a video about her. She only got 8 years and she ended up pleading guilty to first-degree manslaughter. First-degree manslaughter just seems like the thing. But she fatally shoved this 87-year-old Broadway vocal coach, Barbara Gustern, in Manhattan. She was this Long Island Lauren, like I like to call her. Apparently, I don't know if any substances were involved, but Lauren was in an argument with her boyfriend, I do believe. And so she's stomping off wherever, and she sees an 87-year-old woman and just pushes her. 87, she didn't even know the woman. And of course, these injuries led to the woman's eventual death. So I thought they got off light. And to me, it's like, what is a life worth? Of course, there was an outcry, not a big outcry. I don't know if there'll be a big outcry over Christian's life or not. But with Christian, was it because he's a man, he's a person of color? There's questions about the volatile nature of their relationship. Was Courtney viewed as this, oh, helpless little girl, helpless, helpless, helpless? It's almost as if they feel like sometimes women can't commit violent crimes, when we know every gender, every race, every person can commit a violent crime. But sometimes I do wonder, like, oh my goodness. Now in Lauren's case, the Long Island push girl, I guess legally there were certain parameters of her charges and, legalities of why she got such a light sentence. But overall, it just doesn't make sense. And when you think about it with Courtney, I was just thinking, she's like 30 now. She was arrested exactly 4 years ago today. Let's say if she gets out exactly 2 years from today or even earlier,
she could get out in about a year and a half.
She'll be around, 32 years old. She can, of course, meet and marry someone. Will she start this, great content again? She's a beautiful girl. I mean, will she start up this Instagram OF lifestyle again to get right back where she was? The money, what has she learned? I hope she's learned a lot in jail. We shall see. We'll keep following her. Oh boy. I see why this plea deal also went through. The family had their buy-in, Christian's family. Also, weeks prior to today's hearing, I didn't realize the estate also formally settled and dismissed its wrongful death civil lawsuit against Courtney. So I'm not sure why that was dismissed. So initially, prosecutors were going after Courtney yes, this history of domestic disputes. We have all these audio, we have the visuals, we have this elevator surveillance footage. She's violent. You can tell on the elevator, Courtney doesn't know how to use her words only. She's just attacking him. But again, her defense is saying, look, it was self-defense. It was an abusive relationship. So I know sometimes, of course, really high charges like second-degree murder end up getting pled down to manslaughter and people cut deals. But my goodness, we did not know if she would get that time served or not. And she got the time served credit. So she's been behind bars for 4 years. And we're going to read some of her disciplinary report that I received. And hopefully I'll get more. So 2 more years to go. She'll be moved from this Turner Guilford Night Correctional Center to a state prison in Florida. And then after a couple years, she could be out of there. You know, she's really playing up her helpless role, or at least she was back then, when she told detectives, yeah, you know, I grabbed a knife, but, you know, I told Christian I wouldn't use it as long as he didn't come any closer. And then she's claiming I just threw it at him, and that was a lie. So let's talk about this incident that same year. This is December 29th, 2022, the information authorities sent me. So at approximately 1830 hours, so what is that, 6:30 p.m., while advising the safety cell inmates the floor is closed, inmate Courtney Clenney remained on the floor and refused all verbal orders given to her to return to her cell. In fear of my safety, that's what this officer wrote, assistance was called via radio and responding staff arrived and assisted with putting all involved inmates back in their cell. So, if Courtney truly suffered any kind of substance abuse problem, and she was allegedly getting it handled in Hawaii, but anyway, April 2022, she goes into jail. By that December, as long as she's not getting any contraband or anything, I would think, 8 months later or longer, her system should be clean of drugs and substances, but she's still not following rules. She refused to return to her cell. This person who wrote up this report, this officer, was in fear of their safety and had to get backup. It's like, whoa. Courtney even refused to sign this disciplinary report on New Year's Eve 2022. It's written refused next to her name. So these are from a FOIA I had put in, I believe, back in 2023. I got an 11-page visitation list. I got that disciplinary report. It has other inmates, but it has Courtney's name in there too. The visitation list I received in 2023 shows plenty of internet video visits. Believe me, I've tried to request these and fight for these. From Deb Clenney, Kim Clenney, and Morgan Clenney to Courtney. So the video visits start around September 16th, 2022. I'm not sure if that's because that's when they start or when I requested it. It goes all the way to the next year, October 6th, 2023. Her parents are Deborah Lynn Clenney and Kim Dwayne Clenney. Seems like they're pretty much by her side and supporting her, actively supporting her, following her arrest, even to the point where they got in trouble themselves. Morgan is part of the Clenney family too. I'm not sure if that's her sister or what. But in January 2024, Kim and Deborah were charged in Florida alongside their daughter Courtney with computer-related offenses. Unauthorized access to a computer or computer system for allegedly accessing Christian's laptop retrieved from the Miami apartment. So that's bad. It's bad enough when your daughter is arrested for something so bad, but you don't want to become part of the case where, I don't know what Courtney might have told her parents, encouraged them to look through Christian's laptop or whatever they were doing, looking for dirt, who knows. But, you know, you don't do that. You don't want to be part of aiding and abetting or doing anything to obstruct justice in a criminal case. Court motions filed by the defense also note that Morgan was included alongside Kim and Deborah under this formal retainer agreement signed in September 2022 as part of the family's joint defense communications team. So this Frank attorney apparently is a good one. He had a good legal strategy. It all worked out well, I guess, for Courtney. So if you want to look for any of those documents and everything, look below. But I really want to talk about why, especially some women, I mean, we've seen it in the case of men too. Unfortunately, I've seen some strange cases of men who get away with all types of alleged sexual assault and all this and hardly get any jail time or might only get probation. You know, I've seen some crazy things, but part of me wonders with Courtney's case, you know, people were expecting, oh, throw the book at her. She could get up to 30 years. But no, she got a sweet plea deal. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if the family of the victim, do they give their buy-in because they don't want to be dragged through this long, drawn-out trial? You know what would have happened. As most cases do, all the victims, any dirt the victim might have had on them, anything that her defense attorneys could have found regarding Christian's life. For example, we know about those horrible tweets he made when he was younger. What else would they have dug up? And, you know, would she have found a sympathetic jury? I think there are some sympathizers out there for Courtney because just listening to the whole volatile relationship is just icky, and I think some people automatically assume Christian was aggressive, or they might automatically assume he was the problem. When it looked horribly toxic. They should have stayed away from each other, and of course, as always, easier said than done. But also, a woman, I wanted to almost say, you know, pretty sets you free. We'll see what I end up putting on the thumbnail. But the Lauren, Long Island girl, she was kind of pretty. You know, she had her bikini photos. Oh my goodness. Courtney has tons, obviously, of bikini photos. Really pretty girl. And part of me just wonders if just looking at her, and I'm glad she was arrested. I mean, I'm glad people, once the evidence came through, especially, people could see through her defense of like, oh, I just tossed it and he's the aggressive one, and I'm glad more evidence came out. However, I think some people might look at Courtney, or even like a Mackenzie Shirella, or certain women, and think, oh, they could never do anything bad. You know, I'm grateful that we're coming a long way from that type of thinking. But will Courtney get her way with this son of Sam law that she's pretty much fighting? I mean, her lawyers already got her a sweet deal. My goodness, leave well enough alone. Will she be able to come out? And I can just imagine the crazy videos she could do talking about her crime. Or my main thing is, I hope she is clean in terms of, you know, her system, if she was a substance abuser, and I hope her mind is right when she comes out. You know, when she comes out, I always think about that. These women, especially, or any person who goes in, like, for example, Mackenzie Shirella, if she's out in 11 years, will her attitude change? Her attitude is horrific. From what we've heard, and, you know, the jail calls were still from a few years ago. And with Courtney, I want to fight to get her evidence. I was denied her video visits, but I've appealed, and we'll see how much I get. What has Courtney learned in the 4 years she's been in prison? I want to see her updated disciplinary records. You know, is she still giving the COs a hard time, or what? You know, is she being a brat in there? If she comes out, let's say, by the end of next year, or a little bit later, is she just still going to be more of a brat, like, look what I got away with? Is she still going to be troubled? Will she enter into another troubled relationship and go off on a guy for, you know, looking at another girl as he says hi on a bike? That's my concern. How will these people be when they get out? Will they be rehabilitated? You know, what's the recidivism rate? Will they go right back in and hurt someone else? Like, that's my concern. I don't know. It's not outrage. It's just concern about where is this going. And that's why, again, I also fight for evidence, because in so many cases we've had such a dearth of evidence. You know, I heard someone say recently, he believes every single trial should just be public. You know, everything should be publicized, and except, of course, if it's some, you know, CSAM case, or the cases where they're children or they're assault victims in a certain way who need their privacy. But any case, for example, like this, where we haven't gotten necessarily all the details. You know, you might see a snippet on the news, oh, Courtney was back in court today, but so much stuff, if it's secretive, I think that can pose a problem, because we want justice to be fair, and we want all the evidence to remain out there so people can know what really happened in this case. What was it truly? Okay, so look for the links below to my Patreon. You can see Courtney's list of, you know, her video visits and when they happened, and you can see the disciplinary records, and there's some other one-pager PDF which I was like, what is this? But since I hadn't requested anything for almost 3 years now, hopefully I'll get a big chunk of a lot more evidence now that this case is pretty much over and done, and we'll get perhaps more snippets of Courtney, her personality in jail. Will we get her phone calls? Will we see anything? We shall see. Thankfully, Florida is usually pretty good about some things, even though I got a denial. So that was weird, but let's just see what we get, and, you know, stay tuned. Hosea 10:12, sow righteousness for yourselves, reap the fruit of unfailing love, and break up your unplowed ground, for it is time to seek the Lord until he comes and showers his righteousness on you. So with Courtney, I pray while she's been in jail, perhaps some people have come to visit her, maybe some prison ministry. That's one reason I do what I do. When our teen goes into jail, The point is not to condemn people. You know, I'm no judge and jury. A lot of people in jail haven't been convicted yet, or, you know, they're just coming in there and maybe they're serving a few months, maybe they're on their way to prison, like Courtney is now, or you don't know the state they're in. But I love it when the women, you know, they call it kite or whatever, request to come to Bible study. That's one way it shows that they're like changing. You know, of course, some people might come for whatever reason. Let me just pretend that I had good behavior while I was in there. But others, they might truly have a heart change. And I hope that's what happened with Courtney. I hope she sees the error of her ways, like, okay, I did the wrong thing here. I'm sorry I took his life. And now let me, when I get out, let me go be a better person and live the rest of my life in a much better way. Time will tell. But that's the hope. That's the ultimate goal, that they're giving their lives to Christ and they're allowing God to literally change them. And that's what reminded me of that break up your unplowed ground. It sounds like some people have this, you know, stony heart, this staunch view. And that's why I hope women like Courtney or the Long Island push girl, Mackenzie, Shrilla, everyone who's in there, not for life, but, you know, they'll come out eventually. I hope they come out changed, saved for the better, and their behavior shows it. For those who don't, sometimes you see them continually get in trouble or go off to live these lives which proved they haven't changed inside. We will see. We will see. Let's keep up with this case and plenty others. Unfortunately, there's no lack of cases like this one. Thank you so much for always watching. Check the links below. Take care.